Well, he's the brightest man I know vis-a-vis history. He is a Hoover Institution senior fellow, not J. Edgar Hoover. By the way, the last time I trusted the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover was wearing Halston. Okay, so this doesn't come as a great shock to me. Victor Davis Hansen, his most recent book is The Case for Trump, and his website is Victor Hansen with an O, Hanson.com. Welcome back to the show, Victor.
Thank you for having me, Dennis.
Well, Victor, I get bemused. I used to get bemused. Then I would get cranky. Now I must admit I'm officially creeped out at the reaction to this virus, especially here in California. I'm officially creeped out by Garcetti, and I think Newsom has to do a make good after saying he worked hand in glove with Trump. So he has to do something Torquemada-ish. Your take on the beyond believable state of the world and the state California due to this virus?
Well, I can't figure out California because it's the largest state. We got 40 million people. And I don't know whether it was because we had the first lockdown on March 19th or for all of our 40 million population, we're not dense outside of the LA and San Francisco area. But whatever it is, we've only had about 3,300 deaths. I know that's tragic, but that's per million population. And it's about a tenth of what New York has. And it's better than any country in Europe, including Germany, a major European country. And yet, and maybe it's the weather, maybe it's out here in Fresno County, we have 1.2 million people, and we've had, I think, 9 deaths. But whatever it is, it's almost as if the better the news, the more paranoid the governor gets. And he wants people to continue to double down on locking down when he should be easing up. And I guess what I'm saying is we've got this coastal elite that I guess their money comes in from big tech or entertainment or university. I don't know where it is, but they have this idea that either the federal government can print money and give it to them, or they have 401ks or whatever it is. The people who are making decisions are not the people I see out here in the county that have to cut hair or sell flowers or change, tires or sell shoes. And they're in a collective fetal position. And yet we've had 5,000 people die this year in California from the flu. I know it has a vaccination that mitigated it, but nevertheless, that's more than from the coronavirus so far. And it's almost like this postmodern elite says, 99.99999 chances of dying if I'm under 65, not dying, and I'm not comorbidity, just isn't good enough. The good life is so much. I'm going to shelter in my nice home and not do anything. And then I'm going to get my governor to scream and yell that the government's got to bail us out.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got, Dennis, the dialectics completely upside down. So the guy in Texas or Florida or Georgia who says, you know what, I'm going to go out there and sell hot dogs, or I'm going to go out and sell used cars. He's not a trader. He's taking a calculated risk because he says, I've survived a heart surgery, or I beat cancer, or I drive on a crowded freeway, but I cannot survive a depression. And so I'm going to take some risk. And he's creating real wealth in investment, labor, manufacturing, making things. But the person who stays inside is become sort of the loyal, patriotic American, but in some ways he's parasitical on the larger society that overcomes their fears. It's half-assed backwards, the way I look at it.
Well, listen, in California, we're closer to the point where they would round you up for trying to sell a hot dog because it's not exactly great meat. This has gotten turned into such a nanny state out here. The St. Bernard and Peter Pan would be aghast. Like you said, Victor, people who cut corners are flush. People who cut hair are screwed. And it's getting worse and worse. And I think that they've extended it out now for another month?
Yeah, I think Trump should say, you know what? We've already adjudicated this in the 1860s, and I am the head of the federal government. I'm going to open Yosemite up. That's not a state park. That's a federal park. I'm going to open Death Valley up and just I'm going to open all the post offices.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's federal property, he should go ahead and do it. I notice out here, though, it's very funny. We have a lot of, I want to use the politically correct term, undocumented residents, mostly from Central America, but a lot from Mexico. And in my neighborhood out here, it's like the shutdown doesn't exist. The guy right, I'm looking right over at a guy who has a barber. I mean, that's a real barber chair. He's out in his patio. He's got a whole bunch of cars lined up. He's cutting hair. There's another guy who has a daycare center. These canteens out in the country here. They started out just doing take up food, and they had their benches, and they said, "Well, you can sit."
Hmm.
And now they're just eating. They're just like a restaurant, and it's weird how.
Good.
But yeah, I'm happy. But law enforcement's very weird. They'll go. They'll just say, you know what? I can't deal with that population. There's no cost to benefit reality for me. If I find them, they may have a improper ID or whatever, but I'm just going to let them go. But I'm going to go after some guy in Fresno
Hmm.
who goes into Whole Foods with half his mask exposed. You know, it's the weirdest asymmetrical thing. I'm kind of happy that it exists because I admire these guys that are doing it, but they're completely exempt from any audit by the government
Hmm.
or law enforcement.
We're talking to Victor Davis Hansen. He is well, he's one of the nicest geniuses I know. Usually you meet a genius and you give them a wide berth because there's some sharp elbows and some idiosyncrasies. But Victor, the sweetest of fellows, and indeed a Hoover Institution senior fellow. His most recent book is The Case for Trump. His website is victorhansen.com. Let's take it out of our in state let's say in-state inconsistencies and take it to the global impact. Victor, I can't believe that I see reporters periodically or people on the acting like there's any sort of truth to the China figures. I mean, they don't push it all in because they don't want to look like fools down the road. But I've actually heard people give the death figures from China out loud, and I think, how can you even say that? You know, they've just sat on this. But the global impact throughout Europe, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they take the Chinese figures because it serves a mutual agenda, and that is it makes Trump look less successful, and then therefore
Hmm.
the narrative that he helped spread the virus or even inept. And then pretty soon, when the lockdown ends and we're in a recession, it's going to be Herbert Hoover reincarnated, locked us down too long and caused the economy to tank. But worldwide, I keep going back to this figure of deaths per million. If you look at the United States, I think today it was somewhere around 270, better than any country,
Hmm.
better than any major country in Europe, with the exception of Germany. And Germany's kind of creeping up there. So whatever we did, and we did a lot of things wrong. The CDC was screwed up the testing, and Fauci has said, you know, on Monday he says you've got to do this. On Tuesday, maybe you should. On Wednesday, hey, I didn't say that. And we've had a lot of that.
Hmm.
Trump, the travel ban was really important. He thought his earlier bombastic comparisons with the flu sounded crazy at the time, but when you have more people dead from the flu in California than you do coronavirus, he's got that animal prescience, you know, cunning. And he said some things about UV lighting and hydroxychloroquine and the eventual number of deaths that sounded crazy at the time, but they may turn out to be a little bit accurate. And then when you compare the media's treatment of him as sort of a buffoon compared to Andrew Cuomo, who sent infected people into nursing homes and didn't clean the subways,
Hmm.
and you've got this corridor, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, with 11% of the population and 55% of the deaths, and they're held up as sort of this blue state model.
Hmm.
And then when you look at the financing that California, New York, and Illinois have basically shot their budgets before the virus, now they want to use it as an excuse. It doesn't really all total up to a competent, ethical state leadership in the United States by these progressives. It really doesn't. I think it's also questioned, Dennis, the whole paradigm of
No.
window on Europe, window on Asia, and you know the San Francisco, New York paradigm. We're all going to live like sandwiches, sardines crammed into these high rises that'll have green belts, and then we're going to have these beautiful high-speed rail connectors and subways, and you know elevators will take us to the skies, and it will be less energy, and will be perfect carbon footprint. I just think the guys that are sort of have a yard and they have their own car and they have their home, that's a much more sustainable lifestyle in times of duress like this, because I think we're going to see it again and again and again. We're only and under globalization, Wuhan is about 12 hours from us all. And the Chinese have a very strange attitude about this. They lied about the gene sequencing. They lied about patient zero. They lied about the origins, the genesis. They came up with this ruse about the wet market. It probably escaped whatever it was from this. I think it was probably an accident, but nonetheless, once it went out, their attitude was, well, let's lock down every place in China so the Wuhan thing doesn't spread, but let's let the 15,000 people from Wuhan fly directly into the U.S. for a week until those stupid idiots wise up and shut us down, and then we'll call them racist.
Hmm.
And that's what they did. And I think that the attitude was sort of, well, we didn't plan this, and it's a disaster, but it's going to be your disaster too now. And they threw up their hands and said, it's yours too. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, to quote Woodward Bernstein, or to quote Ben Bradley, it's a non-denial denial in an odd way. They're having the best. They're
Yeah.
having their virus and eating it too. Victor, do you think there's the virus and then there's the draconian measures taken in this almost like upper contiguous 48 string of pearl states? That, and I often wonder if Mueller had been even vaguely adroit in his testimony and push the collusion thing down the road, I honest to God don't think that the measures in these liberal states would be nearly as draconian. But I think they're picking up on the fact that Mighty Casey has struck out, and this is the next thing they're trying to not push.
Yeah, I think that. No, I think it's just something they feel is useful. It can be warped or weaponized. I think they feel that Stormy didn't work, and Michael Cohen, and the voting machines, and the first impeachment, and Mullins Clause, Bandy Lee from Yale saying that Trump was crazy, the 25th Amendment stuff. And then we had the 22 months of Mueller. And then we had Adam Schiff and poor Jerry Nadler and that impeachment. And, Wiley Coyote,
Hmm.
he couldn't catch Roadrunner. And Roadrunner now, they thought they had their hands around his neck with the coronavirus, and he was kind of sloppy in some of his press conferences. But Trump is Trump. The reason he's survived in that jungle in Manhattan real estate is he's got an innate cunning, and he does have an empathy for people. He feels comfortable. He's not some snooty liberal behind a gated estate in Atherton. He likes being with people, and he's empathetic to them in his own way. And so I think he had pretty good instincts. And I looked at his ratings today. Dennis, they're above what George W. Bush and Barack Obama's were at this time on the Real Clear Politics average.
49.
Well, Gallup has got him 49, but he's also in all of the polls. And that factors in really anti-Trump polls like Politico and Reuters that have him down in like 12. He's up to 46 and a half. And I think that people understand that the media hates him and they want to destroy him. And the guy gets up every morning after his 4 hours of sleep and his Big Mac, and he wants to go out and be famous for saving America and making it first. And nothing seems to stop the guy. I mean, they've thrown everything at him. And I thought most lesser people would have just had I can't take this. Please make it all go away. And he's never done that.
Hmm.
And I get that earns him some respect, even from his enemies, I think.
I think Trump looks at our country and sees it as one big Woolman ice rink, quite frankly. And I think that Trump had to walk around so many work sites in a hard hat and a power tie that he did accrue some insight into the soul of the proletariat and found that it pleased him. And he is the unlikeliest meet John Doe. You might spell it Dough because he was always about closing. But Donald Trump, whether they want to think it or not, is much more in touch with working people in this country than somebody like Biden. Victor, I find it terrifying. Listen, I know we're estranged. I know there are two tribes in this country now. I find it terrifying that they're willing to go any further down the road. I always think, how can the Dems reset? Because I know half this country thinks that they've gone so far around the bend. And I think, what could their sister soldier be? I think somebody ought to just come out and say, listen, we've got to pull Biden from the game. It's Lou Gehrig. He's not there anymore. We've got to pull him, and we got to put Wally Pipp in, or we got to pull Wally Pipp in. But they don't do that, and that terrifies me. They must know that Biden has dementia, right?
They know he has dementia. They thought that, they didn't want him at all. And then they got these crazy candidates, Buttigieg and Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren, and they got scared. And then there was Bernie. So then they thought Bloomberg with his $1 billion would save them, but he turned out to be terrible debater, terrible campaigner, kind of an arrogant SOB who was pro-Chinese and cared more about making money than about anything else. And then they said, you know what, let's bring Biden back. And then mysteriously, they all just dropped out of the race. And Biden was coronated. And they thought, you know what, now with the lockdown,
Mhm.
Joe didn't do too well with the lion face, lion pony soldier, all that crap, and fat, and corn pop and all that. So we'll put him in the basement.
Mhm.
He'll relax. His wife will be at his side. He'll get a teleprompted script, and he'll do fireside chat critiques of Trump. And Trump will let Trump talk himself into oblivion. But what happened was he couldn't do a teleprompted speech. He couldn't do an impromptu speech. He couldn't do a speech with his wife at his side. And here Cuomo had a disastrous tenure, but he gave pretty good press conferences. So they thought, you know what? He's our new hero. And I think what they're trying to, and then the Tara Reid thing, I think they've decided, you know what? I'm a hypocrite. I will do anything and say anything, whether it's Kavanaugh. I'll crucify Kavanaugh and I'll say Biden, but I'm not going to do it for a candidate that's not viable like Biden and is going to lose. So you're starting to see a little bit more erosion and, Tara Reid's nuts and don't listen to her. So I think they're going to try to finally say, we've got to have this convention. It's got to be open, and
Mhm.
Bernie's got to give his delegates to another candidate, and Biden's going to go along and give him something. I don't know what they'll give him, but he's not able. I just can't envision that guy August, September, October. He doesn't want it.
Oh, he doesn't want it. Bernie Sanders does not want this. He'd be more shocked than Redford in the copying room at the end of the candidate.
But can you envision Biden even campaign? I think they want to lock him down and have a tele campaign, but I can't see Biden doing it either. I can't see him out there every single day
No.
with his hands off. He's not going to do it. And so that means that they've either got to bring in a guy like Cuomo, or Michelle or Hillary.
It's Hillary. It's Hillary.
Yeah, it's got to be one of them. Got to be.
I've been saying that for years. Honest to God, they can't do it with listen, Cuomo, there's some quirk about Mario, there's some quirk, something. I don't know what it is, but I guarantee you some opposition research guys holding it.
No, there is. There is. There always was with the dad, and everybody said, he's got some.
Yeah. So he's got that to deal with. And then he's got, quite frankly, this memo. You talk about a smoking
Yeah.
gun that you have to let people back into. I mean, Jesus, that is a smoking Gatling gun.
No, they can't. They're just going to have one commercial that says every single lives matter, then a switch, and it's going to say people die, we can't stop it. That's the way it is. Virus kills people, and they're going to be juxtaposed, and it's going to make him look like an idiot. And but I think they're going to have to do something, and it'll be very interesting to see how they pull it off, because they've got to get rid of Bernie. He was the guy that worked really hard and got the second number of delegates. Maybe give him another house on Lake Champlain or something. But they've got to get rid of him, and then they've got to get a candidate that's not too far left, but has some kind of vice president that pacifies the nutty left base. And I don't know how they're going to do it, but it just is the same old pattern where Trump will be doing pretty well. He looks like he's got his stuff together, and then there's this new psychodrama crisis, impeachment, Mueller, Ukraine, whatever it is. Now the virus, he blew, and then he goes down, and then he goes back up, and part of it's because the base is so sick of half of America that they'll stick with him. And, I know so many people who will say to me, well, I don't like what he says. I don't like what he tweets. That's same old stuff. And then they'll say, but you know what? He's the only thing standing between, and then they'll list everything. Socialism, craziness. And it's pretty scary that there isn't a Democratic Party anymore. It's kind of basically to the left of a European Democratic Socialist Party.
Yeah, it's crazy time.
And it's scary that agenda is really scary. And these people are angry and they're mean and they don't like half of America. And they have this sense of entitlement because of Obama, and they thought they were going to have 16 years with Hillary, Obama, Hillary Regnum. And then they think,
Hmm.
you know what? We're the citizens of the world. We're where all the big money comes from overseas. We're the people that go to the Ivy League or Stanford or Caltech or MIT. We believe in science and high tech, and we have the experts, and we're into finance. And anybody that uses their arms or legs can be Xeroxed and outsourced. And we don't need mining or timber or farming or agriculture or oil or gas. And boy, this price is really, I don't think that Mike Bloomberg, his deals with China are going to fill his refrigerator, or some guy from
Hmm.
going to have to drive all night in a semi to make sure that there's toilet paper at his corner market. So I think it's been good in a way that
Listen, Trump is Little John on the log bridge with a pugil stick at this point, and I think that's why he gets reelected. Let's say he gets reelected. At that point, Victor, and I know you've got some time things today, but I just want to wrap up by saying, wouldn't the civilized thing to do at the end of Annie Hall? Woody Allen always says a relationship has to move like a shark. Ours is inert. What we've got here is a dead shark. I think the left and the right in this country have a dead shark on their hand. Wouldn't it be the civilized thing to do? And historically, I don't know if it's unprecedented, to come together and break up. I don't know how you split it up, but figure it out. Wouldn't that make sense?
it would, but Trump doesn't believe in the Sermon on the Mount. He believes in classical, the Iliad, the Odyssey, Achilles, and that different type of value system is basically you don't screw with me, and I won't screw with you. You preempt and start it. Don't tread on me. I'm a snake. And every time he got in these terrible Twitter wars with no matter who it was, John McCain, the Gold Star parent, they started it. The magnanimous Christian thing would have been to be Mitt Romney or Jeb Bush and just say, you know what, I'm not going to get down to that level. Trump doesn't believe in that. He's a guy right out of a Homeric epic, and the only way that people stop screwing with you is you reply with mega tonnage. So yeah, if they want to come to Trump and say you won, let's work with you, that would be the best thing for his ego. He would say Nancy and I were talking late, Chuck Schumer and I. He would love it, Dennis. But it has to come from them because he's not the kind of guy who's going to turn the cheek and say, you tried to destroy me and my family for 4 years, and now I'm supposed to come out and outreach. But if they were to reach to him,
Hmm.
then in his value system, that would be something that would not only be advantageous for him, but he would like to do it. He's not a mean, vindictive person. The thing to remember about Trump, I think, is he doesn't hold grudges. Everything's business. A guy can screw him over in a business deal, and if he thinks the guy comes back and wants another deal and he'll get 50-50, he'll go back and deal with the guy. He calls Steve Bannon up all the time, even after Bannon said all those terrible things about him.
Hmm.
He doesn't hold a grudge. He's not like Nixon. He's not a grudge holder, or Obama held a grudge. Even Bill Clinton, the Clintons do. So I think, yeah, I'd like to see, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and all of them say, you know what? Okay, you're going to be here for 4 years. Let's address the deficit. Let's get the country, the pension system. Let's get all these financial problems settled, and we'll go halfway with you. And I think he would respond splendidly. But I just don't think that they're going to do that. I think they hate him.
Short of that, though, Victor, short of that, just in closing, can you ever see a time where we just split up the albums and go our separate ways? I think the transit back and forth between what I would loosely refer to as the rim country, Illinois, New York, and the flyover country. I think egress into the rim country would be easy. They don't believe in borders anyway. We can make it like as easy as if you come in here, you just have to have a thing on your window that gets read at the border, like the Holland tunnels or something. But it wouldn't. Can you ever see a time when America would break up, or that's just a fantasy?
Well, I mean, anytime you have an ideological difference, we didn't have that in the 60s. We had ideological differences, but we didn't have a regional force multiplier. We had that in the 1860s, and we have it now because when I go to New York or Boston or Los Angeles and San Francisco, it's a different country, than Reno or Fresno.
Hmm.
And so we have half the country's population in these two coastal strips and a little bit around the Great Lakes. It's a different world. I think we're already breaking up, Dennis, in the sense that I don't know about your family, but I have some Bernie Sanders people in my family. They don't speak to me. I think the left is the one that really wants the breakup as much as the right or more than the right. I think that we're
Hmm.
the albatross around their neck. We believe in things like skeptical of abortion, and we like guns, and we believe the founders were right about the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. So I think we're the embarrassment to them. But I think we're already doing that just voluntarily. And California, remember Jerry Brown said he was going to conduct his own foreign policy with China, and
Yeah.
they were talking about. So we have 550 sanctuary jurisdictions where they said federal law doesn't apply in our. That's kind of like John C. Calhoun.
Mm. Well, let's make it official.
Yeah, I'd like to see a guy in Utah say, you know what, that's a good idea that San Francisco County has, and over here in Provo, federal gun registration doesn't apply. And you know what? You can kill any damn three-spotted lizard you want. There's no endangered species. It just doesn't apply. You're right. And they would go crazy about
Hmm.
that. And they don't want to live and let live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the right would just say, you know what? I'll just do my own thing, and we'll call it the United States, but I just don't want much to do with you. And the left would say, no, we're going to split, but we're going to make you like us.
Right. Right.
So I think if there was a split, they think they would try to invade. It would be the war of coastal aggression, I think.
Well, listen, invite those family members to break bread and pass this up, but it's key that you tell them you'll pick up the tab. Tell the Sanders people you'll pick up the tab. They will come a running.
That's true.
Good to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait till the world is back up and around. I'm taking your next tour with you to Greece. I gotta get out of the country and go see the world again somewhere.
Good to talk to you, Dennis.